Welcome everybody to the Calaveras County Water District regular board meeting of Wednesday, April 22nd. It's 1 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Executive Assistant, can you take roll call, please?
Director Thomas.
I'm here.
Director Davidson.
I'm here as well.
Director Robertson.
Present.
Director Ratterman.
Here.
And Director Garamendi is on his way.
Okay, we are celebrating Executive Assistant Day today, and we want to certainly take a moment to thank our Executive Assistant. Thank you very much. That was my public comment. Any other public comment? At this time, members of the public may address the board in any non-agendized item. Anyone online? I don't see any hands. Anyone in the room? We're going to move on to the consent agenda. We got two items, 3A, 3B, our minutes from April 8th and our investment transactions from March 26th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. You have to take roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 401. New business. Item 4A, presentation of the enterprise vehicle lease to own program. Our own Damon Wyckoff on the mic.
On the mic. Good afternoon, directors. The enterprise program. So you can see kind of program started in 2019. Where we're at now is 74 district vehicles, 46 of those enterprise. So just kind of under the lens of our mission here, the focus of the fleets program is really to provide safe, reliable, cost-effective services when it comes to the fleet. And also just considering the kind of the depth and the breadth of our service territories, how it kind of makes reliability and safety all the more important. So when folks get called out, yes.
I have a question on the first slide. It seems like we've been in this program quite a bit. Why do we still have, are not all of our vehicles in the enterprise? There's 46 that are not. What is their story? What is?
A lot of those, well, those vehicles are vehicles that we've kept. So a lot of those are older vehicles, and then a lot of those are vehicles that enterprise just simply doesn't operate, or they're the world that enterprise doesn't operate in. So they're the heavy duty fleet, so pumper trucks, Vector trucks, what have you. So, but the majority of those are older vehicles. And so as you know, we're risk averse. So as you guys can imagine, we tend to hold on to a lot of those older vehicles. Simply so we have a backup, just simply to have a backup.
All right, thank you.
Yep. But really kind of when you consider reliability and replacement under the lens of that, in 2019, we were kind of on the other side of that issue, so to speak. So basically 65% of the fleet was 10 years or older, and 88 of the light and medium duty fleet, which we've heard referred to recently as the Swiss Army knives of water districts, kind of like the utility tool, were over 6 years or older. So really kind of one of the things to take away from this slide is we were on a rotation or a replacement regimen of 21 years. So it would take us 21 years to replace all vehicles. And so when Michael and I arrived, it was really apparent that, you know, one of the issues that our folks faced on the field was reliability. Being able to get to a site if there was an emergency was called into question a lot of the time simply because the vehicles that our guys were using were unreliable. So the objective that the enterprise open-ended lease program provides is it allows us to make that fleet younger, to decrease those replacement regimens, make it shorter, and to kind of get into this window of where it's reasonable. We don't want to have, you know, we're not replacing vehicles every 3 years, but at the same time, we have vehicles that are of old enough or young enough, so to speak, that allows us to ensure their reliability. So one of the things that also kind of started to happen as we were working through, it's kind of one of those happy accidents, so to speak, is this thing called the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation started to come around while we were really kind of at the beginning of the ACF program. So 2019 was the first year that we added vehicles to the fleet from the enterprise program. And I want to say it was 2021, 22 when ACF discussions started really to happen. And so that allowed us to kind of look through that lens of replacement requirements and transitioning to electric vehicles through the work that we were doing with enterprise. And so one of the kind of the components of the enterprise program is you buy vehicles and you work with a representative from enterprise. You operate those vehicles and your terms are kind of flexible. So you could have 5-year term, 4-year term, 6-year term. And you can adjust those monthly payments on the vehicles that you're going to purchase simply based on what that term is going to look like. And the enterprise folks leverage the fact that they have vehicles all over the country to kind of understand the markets and to tell us when optimal time for replacement would be. And so then the thought is that when you're ready to sell vehicles, you've paid off that vehicle, you're at the end of the lease term, and you're going to sell 10 vehicles, enterprise handles all of that. And we'll illustrate that here in a slide coming up.
Do we always get rid of them?
Not necessarily. So kind of cutting to the chase, we've sold one batch. We've sold the 2019 batch. We haven't sold anything yet. We're still in the terms for the 2020 vehicles. Those will come up in this coming fiscal year.
We'll get all the proceeds from the sale?
Most,
Carry over to the next,
yeah. Let me jump to
is it
that.
credit or?
It's a check. We get a check cut to us. And so just jumping into the purchase history to give you guys an idea of what's gone on over the past 6 years. In 2019, we had 3 Rangers, 7 F-350s. You can kind of see the complexion of the fleet, how it's changed over the years. 2021 Rangers, we purchased some dump trucks through Enterprise, F-550s. So they're not like the Kenworth size 10-wheeler, but they are dump trucks, smaller ones that we use out in the field. A lot of 1-ton vehicles. The mechanics trucks have been purchased through this program. And so cut to fiscal year 25, 26, this budget year was the first year that we chose to just hold, kind of to your question of, hey, let's just stop and see what's going on here and just continue to, pay these other vehicles off and look at it coming into 26 and 27. So then in 24, 25, we did sell 21 vehicles. 11 of those vehicles were sold where they were just, a lot of them were used vehicles, 08s, 07s that we had kind of around. We sold those partly through Enterprise and partly through the surplus program. And so we wanted to optimize the profit from those sales. And then we also took the 2019s from Enterprise and sold those and we received $225,000+ on the sale of those vehicles. And we used that to pay down the program. So for essentially 5 months, we didn't make a monthly payment to the leases to Enterprise with those dollars. And so here's kind of the resale overview. I know a lot of that's the fine print, but for the 1 ton was $12,500, and for the Rangers was just under 16,000. And so you can see after 5 years, yeah, right. And so it took Enterprise about 10.5 days to sell those vehicles for us. And so basically the depreciation of $13,500+ over 63.9 months was $212. And so it's positive. Selling above 49.43% above the industry benchmark. So that was an additional 14 grand because we're leveraging a large company that has kind of their fingers in the pulse of all things vehicle. And so that's where we were kind of move, and that's how it allowed us to kind of move in and just set and kind of, okay, we're just going to take stock of where we're at here. With this current fleet of vehicles, we have a fairly young fleet, and I'll give you the stats here on that in a second. But the one thing that, yeah, go ahead.
When you sell a truck, like a 350 with a cherry picker on it, sell everything, get everything all new cherry picker, everything, or you keep some of the beds and
The trucks that we have sold like that, we've sold the whole thing. Most of those have been pretty darn old, like some late 90s vehicles to the early 2000s. The one that comes to mind that had a crane on it, it was a service body with the crane, an 03, sold the whole thing. Kind of talking with our purchasing agent who manages the fleet, if we find ourselves in a situation where we have a vehicle that's younger, by all means, we'll take that body off and we'll just sell the vehicle
If it fits.
if it fits. Yeah.
what kind of mileage do these stuff generally have when you sell them?
Well, so the older ones were up closer, near 200,000 and over. We're averaging around 49,000 per it with the enterprise vehicles. So it equates to between like 12 and 15 a year. So one of the kind of the conversations initially was that we don't really anticipate this program to be a saver on overall expense, like or purchase expense, but we do anticipate an opportunity to optimize fuel savings. That's been really hard to track because we don't have a separate GL for enterprise fuel purchases. But I was able to kind of dig into overall fuel expense over this past 6 years and just pull out enterprise. And so the overall fuel expense that we've spent over the past 6 years is just under 1.4 million. And enterprise vehicles float around between 35 and 40% of that expense. And so to kind of calculate some of the numbers, I'll show you, I used 35%, and that's just under 500,000. So the total spend for the program over this last 6 years has been 1.977 million. And so the total spend were we to just go out and buy all of these vehicles outright would be 3.423. So that total spend includes upfit costs. So, service body, crane, lift gate, what have you, and it includes maintenance over those years. When you add fuel, the fuel plus maintenance and overall cost for the district is 2.459. But if we were to project that out over, if we were to just buy them all outright, we would be at 3.9. So really, the kind of the short story is that we're able to do a heck of a lot more with less dollars because we're buying these vehicles over time. And really kind of one of the great helps is that when we do pull the trigger on the sale, we're able to push those dollars back into the program, and enterprise is able to really kind of optimize the sale of those vehicles.
So these figures, the savings comes from decreased maintenance and better fuel economy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. But I would tell you that if we were to go dollar to dollar and pay them all off at the same time, it's probably going to be a wash.
Yeah.
And really what we benefit from, I think most tangibly, is response time and safety. So
Reliability,
yeah,
response time, safety.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Count on the vehicle.
Yeah, I think if all the dollars come, but there is definitely a benefit by paying over time because it allows us to kind of leverage a tool that we haven't paid off yet, but we're still deploying everybody out in the field. But ultimately, if it were all to come hit, yeah.
I mean, just with 2027 right around the corner, what's our thought in regards to that? I kind of thought we might be accumulating vehicles ahead of that.
Great question. So we had a meeting with our enterprise rep, and she has proposed that. But we have yet, as a management team, have yet to talk about it in terms of the budget. But that is her proposal, is that we try to get as young as possible, so to speak, with vehicles before 2030 when the ACF requirements kick. We kind of held off in budgeting because
that would be a good reason to pass this year. save a little bit. Maybe with an older fleet.
Yes,
a year later, I mean, I knew you guys were looking at it. I just wanted.
there's a lot of uncertainty around whether or not ACF is going to stay the way it currently is. And so in my budget projection or request, I did not ask to replace any vehicles, but Enterprise is recommending, and they give you kind of basically all of the options, obviously, but they say,
Just out of curiosity, have they come up with a vehicle that meets the criteria that we need? And do they have any ballpark cost of those vehicles? Let's just say, the 550 dump truck.
great question. No, they have not. However, the amended 15-day regulations for the advanced clean fleet regulation kind of got ahead of what a lot of organizations were doing. Were looking to essentially what's the right word? They were basically trying to lease the fleet, but not own the fleet, and then thereby make the private company responsible for their fleet to kind of navigate around the electric vehicle requirements. And so in the 15-day regulation, the Air Resources Board added a provision, a term that says any fleet that operates in a public water or wastewater district capacity is going to be beholden to the advanced clean fleets regulations. So there's this kind of going on. So 15 comments for the 15-day, the 15-day comment period is over. The amendments are being considered. Kind of the requested changes of all of the associations have been placed before the executive officer for the Air Board, and we hope to hear something very soon. And that will help drive CCWD's decisions on how we move forward with vehicles in the short term up to 2030.
I think it's wise you're just holding off making any decisions. It does seem like they are,
Yeah.
there's some movement, they're listening,
Right.
paying attention. I mean, paying attention to you and efforts and all those that are yelling at them.
Yeah, I feel like we're being heard. Yeah. And so here, 2026 situation. So 25% of the fleet now is 10 years old or older, and 47% of the light and medium duty fleet is 6 years old or older. So that's a marked improvement over 2019 numbers. And the average age of the light, medium, heavy duty fleet is 7.9 years. And we're in an 8-year cycle as opposed to a 21-year cycle. So we've been able to kind of turn the corner on vehicles. And then that hot pink or color is just highlighting that we were able to sell those 2019s for a profit of plus 225,000.
Can't just put like a little 3-watt tickle charger on it and call it electric.
That's a great idea.
Let's try it anyway.
Yeah, that'd be great. And so there is this slide that really kind of
Runs
gives
the
you this is the Enterprise, overview of the partnership that we have with them. And it really kind of illustrates the sale of this year and the what we pay annually for lease expense, what the maintenance costs are, and the safety observations. This is kind of what we get when we meet with them on a monthly basis, and what the rep provides us and what they use to kind of give us that, recommendation for vehicle replacements and purchases in the future. Incidentally, they also track the market. So during COVID, I'm sure you guys remember, people were calling folks up and offering to, dealerships wanted to buy your vehicles. And there was a point in time that were we to have had a F-150s under the program, we could have purchased them 1 year, operated them for the whole year, and sold them the year after. And the profit from the sale would have paid for all the gas and maintenance that we put the vehicle through that entire year. And so there's these couple times we were almost able to leverage those kinds of things, but we just didn't have 150s at the time.
Well, the other side of that is if the car board goes the opposite direction, it's going to be difficult to get vehicles. So I think, you guys need to meet with them later and have a couple strategies, because we're going to want to actually be there quickly.
That's a great point. Yep, you're right. Yep. And then, finally, just some examples of some folks that are our regional neighbors that utilize the program also. So you have like cities like the city of Reading, Rancho Cordova, the Glen Colusa Irrigation District, Reclamation District 108, which is a ag district up in Yolo, Colusa counties, Calaveras County, and a whole host of others. And there are more, but this is just kind of the folks that are a little bit somewhat close to us. I've also had other water districts in the region, like Sax-Suburban has reached out and was curious about the open-ended lease program. Also,
Damon, I've got a question for you. Refresh my memory on who's doing the maintenance on these newer vehicles.
great question. So we purchase a card from Enterprise, so it's an added cost. We incorporate it in the maintenance budget over the year. So for all of the 46 vehicles, it's about 36,000, 37,000 a year, and that gets you oil change and brakes, and then pretty much at any mechanics shop that we want to operate in. And if they don't work with Enterprise currently, it's really quick to get them into the program. And then if there's something beyond that, like you've got an issue with the transmission or something's happening, the mechanic uses that card to talk to an Enterprise rep, and then the Enterprise rep will approve the work. So all oil changes, and brakes are covered under that program for the year. And then additional work is an additional cost. But what that does also is that it frees up our mechanics to take care of water pumps, sewer pumps, aerators, and
Our
whatnot.
mechanics don't get involved with that.
Not with the Enterprise vehicles. That's right. So it allows them to work on the bigger stuff, vac-ons, other equipment, off-highway equipment, and then, our field sites.
Noticed on the slide that showed the tracking of how many vehicles and what type and what the manufacturer that you were buying, Fords and Dodges and Chevys and stuff. When I had a small fleet of trucks, I always thought it was pretty convenient to have engines that they're similar,
Yeah.
so that you could have oil filters and starters and stuff on
Yep.
on the bench. If you don't have to worry about that with the Enterprise fleet, but if you, I guess what I'm trying to say is there any wisdom in kind of pre-selecting and sticking with one manufacturer of vehicle?
Yep, it's a great question. For years, Ford kind of was the cheapest and had the best terms. And that changed throughout this program. Dodge came into play for a couple of years, and then Chevy is most recently has really kind of jumped in. I would say it makes total sense to stick to a vehicle type if we're going to buy them outright and own them, because we're going to be maintaining them. But with this program, it gives us the opportunity to look at price and terms through Enterprise, because the objective ultimately is we take those oldest vehicles and we sell them, and we try to get as much as we can. And so we're kind of leaning on them to make the recommendation on what to purchase based on those considerations. But like I said, if at some point in time the district decides, hey, we're gonna phase out of this Enterprise lease to own program, start buying vehicles ourselves, I would think it would make most sense to stick to one manufacturer.
Well, I appreciate that report.
Yep, thank you.
I have one more question. This gotta buy vehicles that just buy specialty vehicles totally outside of the program.
Unfortunately, currently they are. Yeah. Even when we purchased the famous bucket truck, and it was not part of the Enterprise sphere, but if I can get anything to change over to Enterprise, I would get it, make it so that snowcats were available.
Or what about generators?
Yeah, with generators too. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one too, actually. Thank you.
And online? Seeing none, thank you, Scott, for carrying the ball. I ran back home to get my paperwork. I will move on to item number 5. Everything has a price. Water resources update. Andrew?
Good afternoon, members of the board. I think this is the first ever water resources update, so that's what a light agenda does to you all. But kick it off here. So we're about a month into the second half of the water year, so it's probably a good time to check in anyhow. But what we're going to do here is start with just a general overview or a review of the water year so far. I'm going to throw quite a few graphics and figures, so try to stay awake and ask plenty of questions as we work through it. So let's just launch into it. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're just a month into the second half of the water year of 2025-2026. And this figure here kind of paints a rosy picture. The state of California on the left, the coloring there indicates the amount of average precipitation across the state. So anything green and cooler in color towards the blues and so on indicates we're at average precipitation. So there's a whole lot of green on that figure. And as of yesterday, we are generally speaking at 98% of average for total precipitation in the state.
Sorry, Andrew, to jump in, sorry, but how
Sure.
did the last 2 storms, which were fairly decent storms, impact the snowpack? Because I know we were like 20% of normal.
That's a good lead in. So yeah, I'm going to leave a little cliffhanger there. So stay tuned. So at any rate, but if I were to use 2 words to kind of describe the water year thus far, I would say it's been indecisive and quite frankly erratic. So, and we'll kind of get to that, and that'll get to your question too, Director Robinson. Okay, so looking at this figure here, this is from the Central Sierra Snow Laboratory, which is up on Donner Pass, just outside of Truckee. And this is a graphic of that total precipitation, similar to that image of the statewide, color graph. But what we're seeing here is that red line is the total amount of precip that we've seen throughout the year, and it generally rides along the median. So, corroborating with that image of the state that in precipitation, total precipitation standards, we are generally at average or hitting that median value that we would see as indicated on this graph. Now, there's 5 arrows which indicate that this precipitation has kind of occurred in 5 major events. One, early in the water year, kind of early November, late October, and then around Christmas time, we had a big storm. There was another big storm around the New Year, and then that February 15th mark where we had the epic snowpocalypse in Arnold. And then also these recent little bits of unsettled weather kind of in this early April period. So this is kind of just trying to show this overall percentage as it relates to the statewide average. This is a good thing in terms of filling reservoirs. And this here is a graphic showing how New Spicer Meadow has increased storage steadily since March as that runoff is filling into the reservoir. So currently, New Spicer Meadow is at 80% of capacity, which is a good thing. Similar story with New Hogan. We've had this kind of steady increase in storage as these precipitation events have occurred. And New Hogan currently is around 70% of capacity, which I think New Hogan is operated a little differently because it's primarily a flood control reservoir, first and foremost before the water supply components flows get factored in. But this is showing that the precipitation is having an effect on the overall water supply, particularly in our area. Now, that precipitation, though, hasn't been equally distributed between rain and snow. So this image, this graph is also from the Sierra Snow Lab, Central Sierra Snow Lab, and it is showing that the total amount of snow accumulated thus far is actually well below the average and has been for a good long while. We also see the arrows generally coincide with the same precipitation events. So we've had basically 4 major snow events that have allowed this amount of snow to accumulate. This is something that is going to need to be considered moving forward. The total amount of snow has generally been falling, and this hasn't included any of the potential kind of snowpack loss. This is just showing how much we've accumulated so far. Now, there's kind of a story to be told with the precipitation events, as I was alluding to with those arrows and these kind of major events. This image is showing that one of those major events that has occurred was we had effectively a bone dry January. We had the series of storms over New Year's Day, and then the spigot turned off until that February 15 storm came and really hammered home. And that's what this image is showing here, is effectively zero precipitation, whether snow or rain. And this is from the gauge up at the U.S. Forest Service, what's it called, workstation or work service area up on Highway 4, just past Hathaway Pines. Now, the next event that occurred that I would say kind of adds to the erratic or indecisive nature of the water year is in March, where in March, after those series of storms in February, we went back to a bone dry period where we effectively had no amount of measurable precipitation. But on top of that, as the image on the bottom is from the National Oceanic NOAA, and it's showing that March in the Western United States was also anomalously warm and actually historically warm. And in California, it happened to be the warmest March on record. And in fact, even drilling down even further, you can barely see it, but there's a little yellow star in Southern California. There's a community on the east side of the Salton Sea called North Shore, California, kind of confusing. However, that North Shore, California, east side of the Salton Sea, hit 108 degrees in March, which happens to be the hottest recorded March temperature, or tying it at least, in the recorded United States history. And then I also think I read, I might be making this up, so you might need to check me. But I want to say that on that day when it recorded 108 degrees in this little community, it was the hottest place on the planet that day. In March, in both hemispheres. Pretty wild. When the southern hemisphere happens to be in summertime during that time. So we had these two events. We had this bone dry January with generally, pleasant and normal temperatures. And then we had kind of an unsettled February, and then we moved into this bone dry March with this extreme heat. And as to getting to Director Robertson's question here, what is that going to do? It basically eliminated the snowpack. So this, the Department of Water Resources goes out during the winter months every month and does a snow survey. April 1st snow survey is generally the peak snowpack. So this is what they would expect, and this is what the department uses to really inform their models and their projections for state water project deliveries and so on. They use the April 1st date as kind of their standard. And as you can see here, there's literally no snow on the ground And the March or the April 1st survey, in fact, had no measurable snow, as compared to a typical or average snowpack of 40 inches at this particular location. So between the bone dry January, bone dry March with the excessive heat, we've basically eliminated the snowpack moving into April. So kind of revisiting this, the idea of this indecisive and erratic kind of nature of the water year thus far, this graphic is showing that these precipitation events, these 5 or so precipitation events, have been significant enough to fill reservoirs across the state beyond historic average, which is a good thing. And, you know, look outside. This image is from Bear at 8,500 feet elevation. It's quite stormy out. However, the snowpack peaked on February 25th, and that peak was 73% of average. So even though we have full reservoirs, even though it appears stormy and that it appears that we're gaining snow, we already started behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
Andrew, on that slide, there's it appears to be like 5 reservoirs with nothing in them. What are the ones? There's one at the bottom right, one at the bottom left, and
Right. And then
on the left.
Comanche.
What are they showing?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that because those aren't state
data?
operated reservoirs, that they don't have the data, so they don't incorporate them into here. Yeah, like Comanche, for example, is the East Bay mud.
I couldn't read all that.
Yeah, right. So I think I'm gonna
Okay.
throw that out there as the reason. So, you know, this is where we're at, and this is what we're looking at. And the reality is that we're starting, as I mentioned, kind of behind the 8 ball here. So to really drive this home, and when we're talking about water resources management and water use and in that sort of context, this is an important figure here, where this is again from the snow lab up on Donner Pass, and this is the snow water equivalent. So how much snow is in the snowpack that will equate to water supply, and indicated here that February 25th peak. After that, it was all downhill. March effectively erased all of that snowpack and all of that water equivalent that would come from the snow. So even though this is kind of a cautionary tale, I would say, is that even though our reservoirs are full now, we have no water supply to fill them back up effectively over the course of the next handful of months, or at least until next fall timeframe. So from a water year perspective, we're dealing with some conditions where we have to be quite judicious, us as a district, our partners in the water supply, distribution and management, and state as a whole, pretty judicious with our water management and our water use as we enter what is effectively the dry season. I'll stop there that's the water year in review portion, and then I was going to launch into a couple just department update type things. So if there's any questions,
I just have one. When you say that, you know, that they use the snow survey, what do they use it for? Is it for the water contracts, or is it for, I mean, do they make changes in whether or not they're going to retain water?
It's effectively this figure. They want to know how much snow water equivalent, how much of that snowpack will.
But how, I mean, they get the information, it's pretty clear information. What are the options of the use of that information? Is it,
one is for the state water project operations, like how much are the contractors are going to get?
What percentage
allocation.
of their
They,
allocation?
but do,
Right.
what I'm saying is do they make any revisions in years early releases or the unimpeded
Yes,
flows or
yes.
any of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the fall, they come out with their initial allocation. So then after these snow surveys, they'll come back and revise that and say, over the course of the summer, you're only going to get X amount versus what we had initially proposed.
Including, is environmental water part of that equation or?
No, because the environmental flows are already baked into either the Bay Delta Plan and or water rights permitting. So those are kind of already regulatory or statutorily kind of administered.
What are the reservoirs likely to look like given flows and what allocations, everything at the end of summer? They're gonna be down like 25% because there's no water flowing into them or?
They'll be down by a fair amount because there is that snow water equivalent isn't filling it back up. It's kind of no different than if you received your full paycheck on February 25th, and from February 25th on, you're going to get incrementally less of that paycheck until the next.
Oh, I understand. It's just no calculation.
Oh,
Very
no.
severe. And secondly, there's a very strong chance, far more than even on El Nino, and but a 25% chance of a super El Nino. What might that mean for us? It generally means a wetter next year. I understand. I don't know if it's colder, warmer, or any thoughts on that.
Well, first, I'm not a meteorologist by any means, but I do understand that the Pacific off the coast of California right now is at record high temperatures, which folks are generally interpreting as a key driver to kind of some of this erratic behavior with our current climate system, and that could very likely continue to be the case where we get these the term of art these days is weather whiplash, where we get this very dry spell, then we get these series of atmospheric rivers that just dump and so on. But it's hard to tell because we did have some quote unquote super El Ninos a few years ago. I want to say 2022-ish time frame, 2023, where it was effectively dry. Like it didn't have this effect of a wet, like bringing these storms across the Pacific and just saturating things. So, yeah, I don't have a good answer. I think
The last 5 years, though, we've had record number of atmospheric rivers and the lowest number in history of Pineapple Expresses.
right. Right. So, well, maybe this El Nino will change. We'll see. Who knows?
Which would
That's-
you rather have?
That's where we're at. And so a couple department updates here. Some things that we have been working on over the course of the first quarter of this year. Starting with some groundwater updates. We had been working for almost a year to gain access to these USGS wells that were installed back in 2010. And we had some trouble with the landowners. We were working with some of the parcel information and easements were kind of off. At any rate, we finally made contact with the proper people and we got access to these properties, and we were able to go out and try to find these wells. We had to go out with a metal detector, as you can see that the kind of in the foreground or in the background, those white tents, that's kind of the main operating area of this person's property. And I think it was a cannabis grow. It no longer is. And we had no idea where this well was. So we had to go out with a metal detector and traipse around the guy's property. And luckily, at one point he looked at us and goes, "Oh, wait, I got this weird thing over here." And me and my buddy found it. We didn't want to touch it. We thought it might be dangerous or something. So at any rate, we drove over there and he's like, is this it? And I'm like, probably. So we opened it up and sure enough, there's our, $500,000 well right there, which has what you see there's 4 2-inch PVC pipes, but each one of those goes to a different depth and they have a different screen interval so we can measure the groundwater levels at different depths below the surface. So this was, what's that? Yes. Yeah. Yep. So this was like very exciting to be able to track these things down. But what came of this, we ended up going out, we evaluated 3 wells. So 2 of the USGS wells, and there's another well over by Wallace.
Is this on the old golf course down there?
I don't
Patel?
I don't know. It certainly doesn't look like it was a golf course.
Well, is it,
It's down off 26.
Yes. No. Warren Road? I don't know the
Look for
geography.
Valley
Does
Springs.
anybody know the geography? Yeah, between the two, between the river and Highway 26.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah. You go through
That's-
Valley Springs on New Hogan Dam Road, turn right, and you drive towards the river. I should have put a map. I need a map. I'm not.
so it's
Well,
closer,
we've got a couple of these nested wells, don't we?
Yeah, we got 2 of them. Yeah, right.
closer to Hogan or closer to the county line?
Closer to Hogan.
Okay.
So thanks for the geography lesson. I'm still learning, obviously. But at any rate, we took these wells after we found them and we took them to the groundwater authority and they were interested because these are pristine USGS wells that cost a lot of money. So we presented them to them and the groundwater authority happens to have a grant through the ARPA funds that they were going to use to fill data gaps and better establish a new monitoring network and so on. And one of the projects that was selected by the board of the groundwater authority was installing data logging equipment with radio telemetry in one of our nested USGS wells. So the equivalent of this getting basically $200,000 for this equipment, which will effectively just be managed by the groundwater authority, and we don't need to go out and monitor it and so on. We also got some analog equipment at the district where my department will go out and manually measure the water levels in the other 2 wells, effectively removing any need for a contractor to go out and manage our groundwater monitoring program. No,
Can any of those be used to inject water into the ground?
no, they're strictly monitoring. Another update, related but unrelated, we commissioned an assessment analysis of how the Eastern San Joaquin groundwater resources model is being applied in the Calaveras County portion of the basin. So it effectively wanted to know, how is our corner of the world being represented in this broad planning model for the basin? And I'm going to show you a series of images or maps here of that kind of help tell that story a little bit. So this one here is an image of the land use. So this is provided by the state and it uses satellites to image crop land and basically inform the various types of crops that are being irrigated. This goes into a model space that then discretized interpolates those land uses to how much water is being pumped to irrigate that particular land use. So it takes little cells, it applies a value of annual pumping to that particular cell, and then they're able to run some scenarios to effectively understand how much change in groundwater storage is occurring. Something to point out in these two images, the darker the blue is the larger amount of pumping. Also, can correlate the land use to the cells with a fair amount of pumping, where in the Calaveras County portion of this model grid, there's only a handful of cells that have any pumping at all, and very few that have a significant, relatively significant amount of pumping. But from here, the model then makes this interpolation of how much of that annual pumping is changing the amount of storage in the aquifer. And that the redder means worse, green means good. And as you'd expect, you get down in the valley floor closer to Linden and those sorts of areas, you have a fair amount of groundwater depression where water is being largely extracted at a rate that is exceeding the amount of water going in. There's also some physical characteristics here that are at play, where as you go up into the foothills, from the valley to the foothills into our area, those aquifer materials are going to thin. They're going to basically, you're going to lose storage just by the fact that the bin that is storing it is getting smaller. The cup is getting smaller. So a couple things at play here is that big red kind of blob in the middle there is somewhat bleeding in. That negative change in storage is bleeding into our side of the county. We do have some pumping in that area, so it's contributing to that. So you add our minimal amount of pumping as indicated by the middle figure. You add the pumping, the pretty extreme pumping that's occurring down in the valley, and then this thinning of the aquifer as you go up into the foothills. You'll see a relatively small change in storage kind of on that the county border. But in contrast to that, on the other kind of edges of the basin in the eastern portion and up by Comanche and down by New Hogan and the Calaveras River, where it's very green, that indicates a lot of water going into the system. So one of the conclusions here is that based on this model and what we can tell from the parameters that we have and the information we have, there's actually more water coming into the Calaveras portion of the basin than basically going out. We have a positive change in storage, where, as I mentioned, predominantly there's a few things at play with that negative change in storage along the county border, but it's largely impacted or influenced by others.
Yeah, but our negative impact, like per acre or whatever you want to do, you don't have a negative impact.
We might regionally, like if you once we start monitoring those wells, you'll see that the water levels are going down, not substantially, but they are going down. But what this is showing is that there's influence by other things, like in the valley.
If I recall, because I was here when the USGS gave that presentation. I don't know if you ever read that report. It's got to be lying around here somewhere. But those guys were fascinating. But some of that water, they were saying, 50,000 years old. But so what are we measuring when we're measuring that basin? How deep is that basin? Is it we've got these different level wells. How many of them are actually affecting or are we using to actually measure the basin? Because there's stuff lower than because there's different
levels.
strats.
Right. And the way the model's built is that it's generally that we're pumping at like a 400 foot, 300 feet to 400 foot level, which is generally consistent with what we're seeing in our monitoring wells targeted at that level. But you're right, that study indicated that the water's old, which generally just means that it's a recharge.
Sierras from
Recharge doesn't happen quickly here. So even a small amount of pumping, it's kind of a slow drip type thing. It's almost like a leaky system rather than, a whole break in the pipe type thing.
As you, looking at that map, are we a net contributor to the groundwater basin versus a loss within our county line? It looks like it.
I don't necessarily think we can go out and say that we're providing a net contribution to the groundwater basin as a whole. But what we can say, I think, from this information is that our corner of the basin is basically neutral or not affecting, not as exasperating the issue. So
Our use of the water is not negatively impacting the basin.
right. And that those green areas along the edges, we are receiving, we're importing basically water into the system quicker than we are extracting. So it's a positive thing, but could we go to Stockton East and say, hey, we're providing X amount of water to you all down in the valley? That's a bit more
But as
tenuous.
far as the GSA goes, it's a good story.
Yes. Yeah, and you could see, so that other red blob to the south, that's kind of the border of Stanislaus County and Stockton East jurisdictional area. So a fair amount of that overdraft or change, red's negative change in storage is also occurring in Stanislaus County. So that's that's groundwater. That's one thing we've been doing. Another big thing that's just taken up a ton of our time, and thank you to Banna and to Jesse for really helping to dig into this, is updating our urban water management plan. I'm not going to get too into the weeds here because we do have a whole series of things that, as indicated on the bottom there, that are going to be occurring over the next 2 months that you guys will get plenty time with the urban water management plan. But effectively, just some high level comments here. The way the urban water management plan, which is a long-term planning document that really looks at water use, currently projections and so on, we broke it out, or it's broken out into 4 subregions based on primary supply. So Calaveras, which includes Sheep Ranch and Jenny Lind, Stanislaus, Ebbets Pass, and Copper, McCollum in West Point, and then groundwater is for Wallace. Though the Urban Water Management Plan 2025 update includes current water use by sector meaning commercial, industrial, landscape, housing, so on. There's also projections through 2025. There's analysis of system, distribution system water losses and future water savings, evaluation of water supply reliability, and demand management measures. So coming up very soon here, we're going to have a public hearing for all those interested to participate in this process and understand what we've all the analyses that went into this urban water management plan, which took a fair amount of effort to compile all the data and reevaluate all of the positions and things that have happened at the district over the last 5 years. And then after the public hearing, there will be a public comment period. We'll clean all that up, and then at the second meeting in June, we'll bring it to you all for adoption. Another item that has a lot of activities recently is on the relicensing front. We have entered the phase of working with various stakeholders, targeted groups on developing these descriptions for the various studies that need to occur for the pre-application document and the future license. So we just recently had our third public meeting or stakeholder meeting to develop these studies. We have a number of the study description meetings coming up in the next 2 months, which have so far been going well. We had 20 plus folks in this meeting. This is the third one, both online and hybrid here in the office or here in the boardroom. So far, a lot of positive interaction with the various stakeholders. And then lastly, the Calaveras River Watershed Resiliency Plan, which we've discussed here before, has been submitted, and the grant actually ends on the 30th. We held Stockton East and Woodard Kern and us held the last public meeting on the 25th of March, which was a good positive thing. The consultant group produced in that bottom right-hand image is the front page of a 30-page summary booklet. Is pretty good in terms of laying out this pretty extensive plan in a more user-friendly format. So I can provide that to you all once it's officially published. There's still some questions that kind of remain. How is this going to be incorporated into the 2028 California Water Plan update, which is really catching some legs right now. And then also, what's the emphasis on implementation of these sorts of plans? And to help, I think, kind of guide some of those questions, DWR is hosting a workshop, a joint workshop on Prop 4 funding related to both Sigma grant funds and watershed grant funds on the 30th, which we will participate in and be able to better understand how we might be able to pursue grant funds based on our involvement with this watershed plan. There you have it.
Yes.
A question. A couple months ago, you did a presentation on the Groundwater Sustainability Act, and I heard this correctly. It looks like the green water may offset our requirements with the SA, but you're also looking at a permeable area where we might be able to put water in. Is there any update on that?
Yeah. I just spoke with the group at DWR that's doing some of that work to help us understand whether or not it's possible. And they were hoping to come out in the spring and do some field studies. And we identified the properties and so on, and everything looked good. But they got bogged down, so they didn't get to all the various properties that they were. They did everything in the Sac Valley, and they went down to San Joaquin, and they just didn't quite get everybody in the San Joaquin. So they're hoping to come out in the fall. But that's still in the works.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment on this item? Online?
I was just going to say really briefly, thank you, Andrew. That was really good stuff. And I think it's helpful to do that periodically. We did, before Andrew's time, we did used to do that periodically, or previously we did that. And so I think we should try to get back into the habit of bringing those updates back to the board and having some public discussion about all the work that Water Resources does. It's a lot of good stuff.
Okay, thank you very much. External Affairs Monthly Report, Kelly.
Good afternoon. So, I think some of the stuff is going to be duplicative for you guys. I did report on some of the stuff at External Relations Committee and some of the stuff at the Legal Affairs. Actually, in the External Affairs Committee, I did showcase a 3-month calendar of what I would, the External Affairs Department would be doing during that time. And right now I'm right in the middle of that. And basically in that calendar, it really showcased that every week, the External Affairs Department is in the community in one one way or the other. Like for instance, the next 2 Saturdays, this coming Saturday, I'll be in West Point at a Firewise event. Following Saturday, I'll be up in Ebbets Pass for a Firewise event. I'll talk about it later, but tomorrow night I'm doing the Historical Society dinner, which I'm really excited about. So here we go, External Affairs Report.
Where's the waterfall?
If you know, you know. I'll talk about it later. I was just shown this spot. It's a magical, magical place. But I'm going to start off again. This year we're turning 80. For those of you who don't know, and so on September 6th, 2026, it's going to be our 80th birthday. Here's a clip of the Calaveras Californian, dated Thursday, August 22nd, 1946. Just 5 days later, on August 27th, 1946, two very important measures were presented to the voters of Calaveras County: the formation of a countywide water district and the formation of a hospital district, a countywide hospital district. Both measures needed a simple majority for those voting to become a legal district. In the case of proposition number 1, which was the water district, a majority of the voters in Angels Camp and outside the incorporated area must vote for the proposition in order for it to carry. However, with the hospital district, which was the second proposition, the election resulted in canvass by different townships. And so should a majority of any township cast an adverse vote, that township would be left out of the district. If all 5 townships vote in favor of forming the district, the whole of Calaveras County will be included. I'll show you some results here in a minute, but actually more folks voted in favor of the water district than the actual hospital district. Combing through all the papers, you find all the other stuff. That same year, PG&E had purchased the Utica Power Company for $250,000. At the time, the Utica system served electricity to Angels Camp, Altaville, Carson Hill, Vallecito, Murphys, and Sheep Ranch, and delivered water to the members of the Calaveras Water Users Association. And then there was a very tense and exciting and hard-fought game, as ever seen that year, I guess, on the softball field. 2 local softball teams, San Andreas and the cement plant team, battled each other tooth and nail, with the cement mixers winning in extra innings 6-5. Earlier, what led to this game was actually San Andreas beating out White Pines. I love the names of the softball teams at the time. It was just San Andreas Town was one of the teams, and then the other one was the cement mixers. So you read down further, it's pretty cool to read the whole story of the game. But then on August 27th, 1946, roughly 97% of the voting population decided to form the Calaveras County Water District under provisions of an act of the state legislature entitled the County Water District Act.
Kelly, you just mentioned that the PG&E bought Utica and delivering water to the Calaveras water user.
Yeah, which was basically like UPUD's service area at the time.
And the city of Angels Camp, they were the water provider for Angels Camp for a while too, up until the 80s, I want to say, when Angels took over. There was a time when PG&E was the water provider.
You'll probably find out more about that history. UPUD was also formed in 1946, and so we're hoping that as we celebrate our birthday, we can also do a joint birthday celebration of just water in the county, because it was a big year. It was a big time. That 44 through 47 was really tremendous time for Calaveras County and water.
Can I deal with the population?
Total population? I do not. I do have a tally of the votes, and this I think is kind of remarkable. Both the hospital on the right and the water district on the left, and all the different towns that voted yes or no. And so that is the total. This isn't quite the complete. There is still some absentee ballots, and this isn't the complete number. This was just in the paper that day with the votes that they had at hand. I think there was still 30 to 50 absentee ballots still to be counted when this paper was published.
So in 1946, they could get the election result out by nighttime.
Yeah. It's interesting though. You don't see Arnold on there. It's really quite interesting to see the different towns and the yeses and the nos. And again, more people voted no for the hospital district and this year, 110 no for the hospital, 53 no for the water district.
So quick search, according 1940, Population of Calaveras County, 8,221, and 1950, 9,902. Grown a lot since. And I also was curious to just looked up real quick, $250,000 in 1946 is equivalent to 4.4 million now.
That little town of Comanche is, now it's at the bottom of the, on the Comanche.
Yeah.
So it's Petersburg. Petersburg is under, okay.
Oh,
And then September 6th, 1946, the Calaveras County Water District was officially formed. They wasted no time. If you see that timeline there, the election was in August, and by the beginning of September, it was official. So I have a whole bunch of other information on there. Again, I'll be doing the Historical Society tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll be giving, expanded versions of that over the next several months, with it being our birthday year. So a lot of good stuff. Again, I want to highlight the external relations committees that we do. This is a nice big old bold QR code to take you right to it. But in the first committee meeting that we've had in quite some time, we did have the CSDA Calaveras chapter representatives. We had Jessica Self, the president, vice president Kyle Harvey, secretary Dana Nichols, and the senior public affairs field supervisor Dane Wadley. They were all here in person to give a presentation on the formation. We've now had 2 meetings. We just had a meeting last week, which I'll talk about here in a second, there's something about the 2 meetings so far. I've really come out, we do a lot of meetings, and there's some meetings you come out, you go, okay, great, another meeting. Both these meetings I've really felt really charged. I think this is a good thing that's happening here, and I'm just really, really excited about it. And the whole room was excited about it too. And again, I'll talk about it here in a minute. Same plug for the Legal Affairs Committee. Please check it out. I'm trying to make both these committees a little bit more engaging. In the Legal Affairs Committee, I put out quite an extensive packet with all the bills that are out there and some of the positions that Mountain Counties suggest to take, Aqua and CSDA. In that particular meeting, we had 2 letters of support that we had just submitted for AB 2180 and SB 1153. And then I brought on speakers to talk specifically about both those items. For instance, Luffy Karoof, who was the Aqua Legal Affairs Chair, and then Kylie Wright, who's the Aqua State Relations Advocate, talked about 1153. And so it's just really nice, I think, to bring them on and have just really the professionals who are boots on the ground dealing with these legislative activities. So you can see it still if you take this link.
no, I just wanted to say thank you. You did mention the two committees that you work with and help support with more robust agenda, as well as bringing in speakers from outside, and that is certainly noticeable. I happen to be on both of those committees for all that hard work and making those committees involved in more stuff and more informative.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know it seems maybe for those of you who are on both, here and then also in the committees, it might be redundant, but I think it's really important that the whole board hears some of that, and hopefully you guys take a look at it and just kind of see. It's really informative. I think Luffy gave a great presentation on AB 2180, so he can explain it far better than I ever could. So I think if you want that information, please take a look. Back to the CSDA chapter, the Calaveras chapter meeting. We had it in here, and we had the kind of the square setup, round table style, even though it was square, so not really a round table, but it was full. Every chair was full, and we actually had 3 folks on the outside. So very well attended. We were very pleased with the attendance. We had 3 of the fire chiefs here as well. And one thing I wanted to really express was how much, specifically Chief Dickinson from down below, just had nothing but good things to say about Damon and his crew and just how close they work together. And he really, really emphasized that working with Calaveras County has just been fantastic. Calaveras County Water District is just fantastic. So that's great to hear. Chief Johnson, same thing. He just said, nothing but good things. And just a great meeting. And we also had a guest speaker who was Kirk Smith. He is the chairman of the Calaveras County LAFCO. And so that was really remarkable. I didn't realize that he was at one point a general manager for Amador. I did not know that. So he gave a great presentation and very, very informative. So I don't know the exact date of the next one. I believe I'll get you guys the exact date of the next one, but I highly recommend you go. It's a really, really great meeting. One of the topics we wanted to talk about next time was veterans and with the hospital district. And I didn't think about it until afterwards, but we have a representative there for the Mark Twain Hospital District. Well, their birthday too. I can prove it. You know, we voted them in the same time. So, but just a really good group. I really like it. Last week, was that last week, the Mountain Counties Board meeting, or the week before? Not too long ago. That was really fun. We were invited. It was held at UPUD's headquarters there down in Murphy's. We were asked to give a presentation. The week leading up to it, I had a whole presentation made. And then while getting ready for our birthday and getting ready for the Historical Society, I found all this other great stuff. And my presentation within 48 hours completely pivoted. And I found all this great information actually on mountain counties and the history of it. And I wasn't really sure much about it. You know, it was formed in the 1950s. Right before like the state water project was being built. And, you know, it was really, really interesting. But for the water district, for Calaveras County Water District, we applied to become members on May 8th, 1956. And actually at that time, it was counties only. There wasn't water districts part of it. And so in their bylaws or in their requirements, it was just counties only. And so we, by board resolution with the Calaveras County Water District, applied to become members. And in doing so, they had to actually change their bylaws to allow water districts. So I don't know for the first, I'm still finding bits and pieces. And I tried to provide as much information at the meeting. I thought it was really, really informative. And just, again, that presentation came together within
and again,
24 hours. So.
Another meeting I went to, and thank you very much for another awesome presentation. You taught Mountain County more about us than we knew before we got there. There was no one in that room that is that knew that stuff, including guys that have been around for much appreciated.
Thank you. And I recommend, I really loved some of those, the questions and answers that were given, you know, like I had this whole 65, not 65 pages, but 65 questions that were asked of the Mountain County regions of, you know, what they thought about the water project and whatnot. And some of the answers were just phenomenal. I read them at that meeting, and I'd love to have a chance to do it again. And I'm finding some more stuff. I found some more stuff since that meeting. So it's the treasure trove.
Maybe back.
What's that? I hope so. Good stuff. 2 weeks ago, on the 27th, I was asked to speak at the Bret Harte High School. They had a FNR 1 class. It's a forestry and natural resources class. They gave me an hour and a half to speak, and I thought, oh man, that's a lot of time. What should I hit on? And I hit on everything. I gave them some of the history of CCWD and water in the region, North Fork project, some of the fuel sending projects we do, how the water gets around this mountain, a lot of the stuff on careers, and they loved it. I mean, unfortunately, only I think 8 or 9 were there. I think the class has 12, and there was a track meet that day. So some of the students had to leave for track, but the teacher he asked some other students who weren't really in the class, who had free time, to come in. So there was a couple other stragglers, and I saw some of those students about a week or 2 later at the On the Right Track event, which I'll talk about here in a second. And they came up and said it was great. They said, you know, they've been doing these presentations and having these speakers come in. They said I was the only one who prepared like a presentation and really showed something. And they said it was really, really awesome. And I wasn't sure, you know, it's kind of hard to read teenagers sometimes. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's difficult. I can't tell. But
a couple of those.
But they really enjoyed it. They enjoyed the history component too. They were just, and then the teacher's from here. The teacher grew up here. He grew up in the Arnold area, and I taught him stuff, the same thing. He didn't know some of this. So it's just, that feels good to, you know, to teach people. So I filled up the whole hour and a half, and it went really, really well. I was excited to be there. So On the Right Track, this is something we do every year. I've been reporting this to you guys now for 4 years. I think we've been doing it well before that, and I feel like it's such a great event. This was at Calaveras High 2 weeks ago, and we had Kate, Jared, and Haley go there. I think they all went to Calaveras High, so they're all alum there, and they got to just speak with the students. The students have real life scenarios, and they come up to you, and it's just an engaging event. And like I said, I've been reporting this for 4 years, and I want somebody else to kind of tell you how great this event is in case you guys don't believe me. So I went with Robin just last week at the Bret Hart one, and she joined me, and it was so amazing. Robin works in customer service, and right away I think we clicked really, really well, and she just sprung into action where, again, these students they come up and ask about setting up a service, or their grandmother died and they need to figure out how to pay her bills because they're getting late fees. One student came up later and said, I just got divorced. All my stuff was in my wife's name, including the water bill, and I need to get it all switched over. So you have this interesting interaction with them where you want to say, well, first of all, I apologize that you're going through this right now. Let us get you all squared away. So I would like to invite Robin up to just say a few words about how impactful we think this event is.
Hello.
So it was actually extremely fun. I wasn't sure how many kids we were going to get their attention, but I feel like I kind of took over Kelly's little thing because I stepped right up, and a lot of the questions had to do with customer service and getting to explain our meter, how our billing works, or what to do in emergency situations of somebody passing. I thought it was really great too that the kids were just really in there looking at the meter box, and I feel like some of the kids couldn't wait for a leak to happen at home so they can say, I know what to do. And so it was a really fun experience, and I hope I get invited more to some of those. Because I think we have some future kids coming to work for the water district because of some of these programs that we're doing out there for them. So.
Thank you.
Kelly, I'm pretty sure I can pick out the little water mask out there. I'm just wondering who the fella next to it is.
So, all right. So this has been the best prop I have ever had. I have a little toilet, and I bring that toilet, and there's a little poop emoji that I put in there. And I know it seems silly, but that gets more conversations from every level, even parents. Why do you have a toilet? What the heck? But think about what we do. I had several conversations with folks that were stuck in their house from the recent storms back in February, where I said, hey, no power, no internet, running low on propane. You're able to flush your toilet. We take that for granted. So the toilet really, really brings in a lot of interaction. It gets people talking. And the day that we were at Bret Hart, it was very, very windy. And I normally have some stickers out, and they were blowing everywhere. So I put them in the toilet. So it worked out that way too. So it was my little bowl of stickers. So yes. Right now, the scholarships. So we just, we do the scholarships every year as well. Typically, it's just been the value of water. That's what it's been for as long as I can remember. And great responses. But this year I changed it a little bit. I called it Water Roots. And I really the prompt was, where does your community's water come from and why does it matter? And so that was the main thing I was looking for. I wasn't looking for a perfect essay or perfect grammar. I really wanted the students to dive in. And what's great is we chose. We have a little bit from every region. One was really great on their water. They realized where their water came from in the Ebbets Pass area. One from Copper, one from Jenny Lind, and one from the McCallney water. So they did it, and it's super hard to pick that. It stresses me out because they're pretty good. I'd like to read one if I could, or I know is that all right if I just read one of them?
Okay. Let's go for it.
We already blew the over under on the.
We did blow the up. I was going to mention.
Started off, kick this thing off.
Yeah. All right. So this is what I'm not going to.
Quick at first.
I'm not going to say the name because we awarded them, but they haven't accepted yet. So I'm going to keep it just anonymous here. So this one is: water is the most important natural resource and is essential for all life on Earth. Yet many people do not stop and think where it comes from or how to access it. In Copperopolis, California, our water is supplied by the Calaveras County Water District. Copperopolis depends on a public water system that primarily uses surface water sources such as rivers and lakes connected to the Stanislaus River. Lake Tulloch is one of the main providers of water for Copperopolis because it is the largest nearby water source. This water is collected, treated, and then delivered to local homes and businesses throughout the area. The water used in Copperopolis begins as rainfall and snowmelt from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Once collected by CCWD, is treated at the Copper Cove Water Treatment Plant to ensure it is safe to drink. Groundwater in the area can contain harmful chemicals and other unreliable factors that may cause health issues, which is why surface water is the most dependable source for the Copperopolis community. Understanding where Copperopolis water comes from is important for several reasons. Surface water supplies depend on rainfall and can be severely affected by drought, which is why water conservation is especially important in Copperopolis. The entire community relies on a well-maintained water system that includes treatment plants, pipelines, and other infrastructure to ensure a constant water supply. Reliable water sources are also critical for community safety and the environment, especially during a recurring theme of frequent wildfires. Without access to dependable water supply, the community would be at serious risk. My own home was in threat to the wildfires that blazed on the Copperopolis mountain. And without the easy water resources, it may not be standing even today. Knowing the source of our water encourages residents to use it wisely. In conclusion, a reliable water source is extremely important for a community like Copperopolis because we depend on it for daily life, businesses, and emergency situations such as wildfires. Copperopolis water comes from surface water managed by the Calaveras County Water District, and understanding where our water comes from helps the community protect this vital resource for the future. So
Very good.
that was one of them. Okay, sure you're all wondering what Wheels of Wonder is. This was a new event that we were invited to. This was called the Wheels of Wonder. It was for kindergarten, actually TK through second graders at Hazel Fisher School. They had a bunch of different vehicles coming, fire trucks, and I got a call saying, hey, would you like to be part of the Wheels of Wonder? Again, I had no idea what it was. A couple of our folks from the Ebbets Pass crew went out there and showed them the vac truck. They even had a little pile of gravel there and they sucked it up. And I've just heard nothing but good things since then from the woman who organized it and some of my, the teachers and some of the parents and some of the kids that went there. They loved the vac truck. They thought it was absolutely amazing. So such a hit. And I heard nothing but good things about the crew that went out there and showcased it too. So Wheels of Wonder. It sounded like it was the coolest truck, maybe they didn't want to say we won, but I have a feeling we kind of won. Yeah. So this is something that hopefully I'm not stealing Michael's thunder with your update, but the Aqua JPI Summit, there's going to be an insights on hazard mitigation and federal funding pathways at the Aqua Conference. And there's the panelists, our own Michael Minkler with Calaveras County Water District, representatives from Alameda and Orange County. I think it's great that we'll be talking about our hazard mitigation plans. And in preparing this presentation, I've dug up some more stuff. I was very involved in the 2023 hazard mitigation plan and was aware of the 2018 one, but I didn't really know how far back it went. And what I discovered was Calaveras County Water District has had its own hazard mitigation plan starting in 2006. So for the past 20 years. In 2006, it wasn't really called the local hazard mitigation. It was a multi-hazard mitigation plan. You can see that they really improved and stepped up their game on the graphics of the front cover. Back in 2006, it was very, very plain, and maybe they're trying to save on ink. I don't know, but got a little bit better on the graphics. You can see. Here's some of this will be incorporated in the presentation too, but this is just some of the recent projects. I didn't go back through all of them, but just here's some of the recent projects and the funding that was really because of the hazard mitigation plan. Having that plan through FEMA makes us eligible for projects like these. So are you guys going to Aqua? Who's all going to Aqua? We'll have to go check it out.
Is that at 8:30 on Tuesday, Michael? 8:30 a.m.?
I don't think it's that early.
I'm not sure what time.
I think it's 10, but I'll have to double check.
Is it insights on hazard mitigation and federal funding pathways?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah.
8:30.
I ain't over the question.
So this is one of the projects. This was this was completed in 2022, but I think it's an oldie but a goodie. And so this is one of the projects that was funded through the hazard mitigation. This video actually made it onto some of Aqua's fire fix videos too. So this will be part of that presentation, but I think it's a great way to showcase, yes, the Redwood beautiful, amazing, some of the most amazing joinery I've ever seen. And then also you had that beautiful bleached redwood on the inside, sitting in chlorinated water for decades. It's just remarkable. But I think
Moving
these,
out of the truck.
yeah. So this brings me to Calaveras Watershed. So I'm going to incorporate much of my historical presentation is going to be some of how we were formed with some of the stuff I already showed you guys, but also I'm going to really focus on the Calaveras Watershed. It's going to be the Historical Society dinner is going to be at the Jenny Lynn Betts Hall. So I wanted to really bring it to where the water is for that region. So I'm going to focus a lot on the Calaveras Watershed. And what I did on Friday was just remarkable. I was invited by Marianne Garamendi, who organized a field trip out to O'Neill Creek at this really amazing conservation easement. And at this field trip, there was the California Fish and Wildlife, Kevin Hesser and his students from Calaveras High, a hydrologist. Actually, he's the husband of the woman who really organized this conservation easement. And then members of the California Valley Miwok tribe were also there. And we are all doing a bunch of meadow restoration and some sampling with the CDFW. This is actually a monitoring site as well. And that was on Friday, and I can't stop thinking about it. Just the whole event was just really, really great. Such a powerful day. They cleared all the blackberry bushes and as much invasive weeds around the site where the sampling was going to happen. They did so much good work. So yeah, it was a really powerful day. I mean, all night long, I was just charged from it. It was beautiful. The students were amazing. One thing that really touched me was Arveda, who was a member of the tribe, came out and spoke to the students with closing remarks and just told stories of her grandmother and great grandmother and the stewardship that they did on that land for generations and generations. And the stories, it gave me chills. It was remarkable. And then, she brought it back so nicely and just said, basically, for the care and the love of the land and the natural resources of the Calaveras watershed, and that Kiku is the foundation of all life. And Kiku is the Miwok word for water. And I asked her, I made sure I was okay. I said, can I share some of your stories? And I'd love to share more, but it was good. It was really great, really great. So I think I gave my plug for the Historical Society dinner. One thing in the back there, that map is another relatively new map that I found. I'm trying to dive a little bit more into the sewer and the sewer formation of this county. Really, it's quite remarkable when you look at the late 60s, early 70s, when it was really being identified that this county will not flourish without sewer systems. I found several old reports and documents where the Chamber of Commerce was getting involved, the county was getting involved, and really trying to reach out to agencies to figure this out. I mean, you saw the Calaveras watershed, the Ebbets Pass area, a big portion of Arnold and the Ebbets Pass area lies within the Calaveras watershed. And it was identified that Calaveras has some of the most pristine water in the state. But if we don't do something about the sewer systems and the failing septic tanks leaching into our waterways, it's going to cause massive issues. Copperopolis was struggling as well. I mean, these reports are great. I don't have a lot of great pictures to go with it, but I'm going to try to at least touch on that. And it's been on my to-do list for a while, is to really bring a little bit more emphasis to wastewater. And
Time.
good question. So I'm not organizing it. This is a full-on Calaveras Historical Society. I'm not sure. Scott would know better as far as
I'm a
tickets.
member of that board. I'm gonna be out of town now. I won't be able to make it. But 5 p.m. And you gotta call, reservation. Time has passed, but if there's still room, call the Historical
office.
Society to museum. I got a number here.
I got it, Scott. Follow up with him.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be called back. The first one I did last year was at the Met here, and it was more specific to, I think, I focused a little bit more on the North Fork project. This one's gonna be heavily focused on the Calaveras watershed. I got some really great maps to really show the tippy top of the watershed, the top of the San Antonio Creek, and just really bring it down to Jenny Lynn and talk about some of the that plant and the history of that. So
754-1058. And you sold out last year. And when they heard it, you were coming back. I think it's well publicized. I think it's probably a lot bigger venue. Is probably why you're down there. So there might still be room if anyone else wants to. The one thing might be is cater number in on time.
I could bring a sandwich.
yeah, I got to finish my presentation. I haven't finished it yet, because like I said, I like them like hot off the press. You know, I don't want them. Yeah, it's like food. You don't want to cook your food too ahead of time. You know, you want it to be hot. So that's
the waterfall.
waterfall somewhere in a beautiful place in the Calaveras watershed.
There's O'Neill Creek, wasn't it?
Yes.
Kelly, thank you very much. Great report. Members of the External Affairs Committee or Legal Affairs want to say anything else before we move on?
There's no legal affairs committee, or it's
External Affairs.
external relations.
Sorry.
There's
External
both.
Affairs.
No, there's both. There's external relations and legal affairs.
Yeah.
I try to touch on them both. So check out those.
I already
Those
think you did a
links?
Fantastic job. Both
Thank-
of them.
All right.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Try to show a little more enthusiasm, please.
Michael, you're up
All
next.
right, mine is going to be boring compared to the last two. Kelly touched on the Mountain Counties events. There was also, just want to shout out Mountain Counties for the roundtable that was the day before. And the presenter gave a presentation on a dam reconstruction project that they did above Lake Tahoe, actually. And it was a really fascinating engineering presentation because they had to do it in one construction season. And so it was an interesting presentation, but I think for me, the real value of those things, I'm glad Mountain Counties is bringing them back, because it's a bunch of agencies from all over our region that do kind of a roundtable after that. And it's really, really valuable. So appreciated that. And also the gathering that evening, the reception, which was also well attended, and lots of opportunity for networking and some really fantastic music. So thank you, Damon, for that. CPPA met last week, and very good news for years now. I probably haven't talked about it much here, and we don't need to get into all the weeds of it, but CPPA has been part of a group that challenged PG&E's rate filing at FERC probably about 5 years ago. And we've seen really big swings in the CPPA rate since then, based on this formula that PG&E was using, which was what that formula is what was being challenged. So we've seen these big swings, and then sometimes a true up where there's a reimbursement, and it's been really hard to plan for. the big swings in the rate from CPPA. The board approved the settlement of that rate case, and PG&E is withdrawing that formula. The rates are going down again, which is remarkable. Most of the connections for CPPA, including most of our connections, are what we call secondary connections, and the rate for that currently is 18 cents a kilowatt hour, and it'll be going down to 14 cents in July, and then we won't have to deal with these big swings anymore. It'll be a 3% annual escalator after that. So that makes it nice for planning and budgeting. And for context, I think that's probably a third of what the current PG&E comparable commercial rate is. So we're still benefiting a lot from CPPA, which I deserve none of the credit for that. But the timing was good, so they reelected me as the chair of that board. And then a couple of, Kelly mentioned legal affairs. There's a couple of pending issues that I think are interesting that we may talk more about. There's two low-income ratepayer assistance bills. One's in the Assembly, one's in the Senate, but they're joined, or they will be joined. And this is, every year for, I don't know, 6 or 8 years now, there's been an attempt to create a statewide low-income ratepayer assistance program that has failed. And this is an interesting new approach that some Aqua members that we know well were very closely involved in. This is after the failed attempt from from Amador Water Agency, and we supported an effort that Larry McKinney drafted that would have funded a low-income ratepayer assistance program out of the state's general fund. And that didn't get any support, in part because of that funding source. This approach would create a trust that is not initially funded. So there's no funding designated for the low-income ratepayer assistance program, but it would create a trust that the legislature could, in future years, decide whether or not to fund. The nice thing about it is it resolves a lot of the policy issues around the creation of the program that we end up fighting over every year. And so those issues would be essentially resolved. And the state board would have to put out guidelines to clarify what is vague in the statute. But we would have a program and we would have a trust. We just won't know when or if it will be funded. So there's definitely some benefit for that. In the future, instead of arguing over the entire scope of issues and the whether there should be a program or not and what it should look like, the discussion will just be about whether it's a priority for the state's budget or not. So it'd be nice to see funding behind it, but at a minimum, we get the program propped up. And then one of the things I really like about it is the fund, half of the fund would go direct to low-income ratepayer assistance. The other half would go to infrastructure grants, which, as we know, is what is driving a lot of rate increases. So I appreciate that they are acknowledging that and including that in the approach. And then I worked through the state ledge committee at Aqua to propose some amendments to it to make sure that we don't get hit with a big administrative burden to prop up the program until there's funding, so that we're not wasting time on that. So hopefully that will get incorporated. And then another one to keep an eye on is SB 872, which is the DWR owns the water rights that go into the state water project, and the state water contractors and DWR are asking through this legislation for an extension of time for their water rights extension to 2085, which has implications for everybody upstream of downstream of the Delta too. But obviously those are really pivotal water rights for the state's plumbing system. And the rest of us have water rights extensions that are moving through the process, and we're doing the environmental review, and we're going to have to mitigate impacts. And they won't have to do that for the foreseeable future. So controversial topic that has Aqua members on both sides. So I would expect to hear more about that. We'll keep reporting back to you. But back home, a lot of budget development, as you can imagine, admin services, great, a lot of new folks there that are embracing the challenges and learning the budget process, and with still some help from Ide Bailey, which is crucial. So a lot of work going into the budget development and updating the rate model so we can report out on that as has been requested. That is a huge lift currently. But we are almost fully staffed in admin services. If you recall, we had, of the 10 positions there in that department on January 1st, we had 5 vacancies. And we currently only have 1 new accountant started last week, I think it was. And we're in the late stages of interviews for the business services manager. So we hope to have that last position filled soon. And then among some other new additions, but staffing is looking good for the most part. We have Aqua in 2 weeks, I think, as we've already discussed. Several of us will be there. And then we have engineering committee. We had moved that to the following week, so that's May 12th instead of the first Tuesday in May. And then UMRA this Friday and camera on the 29th, is it? Yeah, camera on the 29th. So as always, a lot going on.
Thank you very much. All right, board reports, information, future agenda items. Let's just go down the road.
I actually have a couple of questions for Michael. I was just thinking about this today. Over the last couple of years, how have our customer numbers changed? They've gone up very slightly. They're really stable.
Yeah, good question. In fact, we were just looking at that for the update to the rate model. There's generally a pretty slow but steady increase, both on the water and wastewater side. We haven't seen a huge surge in customer new connections, but there's been here and there over the last few years, but we can get specific numbers for you if you'd like to see the trends exactly. There's been, I know, a handful in Copper and Valley Springs is typically where we see the new connections for the most part.
And finally, is it true you caught a 12-inch rainbow trout out of the little tiny stream next to the watering hole?
I might have to check the date. I have to check the date on my fishing license before I answer that question publicly.
You or one of the people at your kids' party?
It may or may not have happened. Speaking of that, the blackberry removal, Kelly, I could use some of that on my property. You guys looked good. Yeah.
That's no further comment.
I took Monday off. It was my son's 8th birthday and had been in Yosemite over the weekend. And then we had a party for him on Monday, and of all places to run into Director Robertson, the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite Valley on Sunday.
Oh.
Was that Sunday? Yeah.
It was Sunday. It was.
Small world.
Really catches you by shock, though. Nancy came up. Can't be Nancy. No further comment, no question.
Yeah, camera is next week on the 29th, Wednesday at 2:30. It'll be in the library, San Andreas Library across town. Michael, that is, you are speaking on that Tuesday morning. It is 8:30. We should get there to support him if we can. Right afterwards, the JPI is putting on another session called "What Board Members Need to Know About AI." This was a session that our guy from JPIA, Dan Steele, he's our finance manager. He and 2 other people put this same exact program on at AGRIP in Nashville. Very interesting. It'd behoove us all, me to see it again and everybody to be there. That's on Tuesday morning. Starts at 10 a.m. Mountain counties. That roundtable was awesome. Michael was there. They went around the table with a bunch of associate members from Mountain County's engineers. A lot of engineers were in the room. Other vendors is who was for. It was 2.5 hours. It did not seem like 2.5 hours. It seemed like a pretty short discussion. But anyway, I think it was well received by everyone in the room, and included a nice lunch upstairs in the Mark Twain room at Murphy's. The reception was awesome. Damon played unbelievable. Got our saxophonist there, two guitarists, and most of us were there. It was a good time. And Kelly, thank you again for that presentation on Friday morning for that rainstorm. That was fun. East Bay Mud Barbecue on the 15th coming up, May 15th. And I want to say something about the budget process as well. I'm hoping as we get close to that finishing it up, I'm hoping we're paying attention to the CIP. We've got a very robust CIP program. Open Engineering Committee is looking at that, and our Finance Committee is looking towards not implementing this current rate, the bumping our rates up again this year when that comes before us. But if we don't start looking at it in our committee meetings, and again, it's and what CIP projects are being approved and moving forward. If we don't start looking at it then our Finance Committee, we're going to be up against that. We're out of money and we need to implement the new rates when I'd like to look at that and seriously consider not doing
I just want to commend you on the reception up there, and Damon, that was great. Everything, the beautiful setting. Got to talk to some people. I got to talk with some of you.
Thanks, Jeff.
But anyway, I appreciate that, Scott. It was a well presented event. I think we have Amra on Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's me.
Okay, I also attended the function at Murphy's, and in retrospect, I recall talking to a gentleman there that told me that he was working with an engineering firm that was doing some tunneling down by Knights Ferry, and then shortly after that, big, very, very deadly and unfortunate collapse that took a young person's life. But have we considered making an outreach to Stockton East and?
Not Stockton East, but I reached out to the GMs at OID and SSJID that same day before what the outcome was and made sure standing by if they needed anything.
Okay, has there been any discussion about whether that work will ultimately result in a tunnel or?
I haven't heard any updates since then. I imagine they're evaluating.
Okay, I hate to bring up a downer in that regard, but I think it's worthy of recognizing that there was a tragedy. But I don't have anything else to talk about.
It was a tragedy when our workers get agencies killed in this case. We have a meeting tomorrow with the county, UMRA, Finance Committee meeting next week. I think. So that's that. We'll be moving into next board meeting will be May 13th at 1 p.m. Meeting after that will be May 27th, 1 p.m. We'll now be moving into closed session, and we'll return after closed session to close the meeting. Thank you.
Public
Oh,
comment.
sorry. Is there any public comment on closed item session? Items online. Thank you very much.
Will we be doing